Okay, I'm gonna stand up straight. Does that look good?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I talk about gacha games way too much already on this channel, but I don't know. A part of me thinks that these types of games are like a good accessible vessel for gamers of all types to, like experience what it's like to be fed an actual art form, even if it does have the side dish of a predatory tactic. And yes, I am in the people who thinks that games are an art form, and by association, so are gacha games. Okay, think of it like this. So you're like a free-to-play player, right? Like zero money spent whatsoever, and you just like logged onto your main gacha, which you've been like playing for maybe a year straight, more or less. By that time, you've probably played through a couple of events, which resulted in you getting like a whole story event that you can read in your own time and in your own pace. And along with that, a free event card that accompanied said event. So, in this house, we do love a freebie. We do love a freebie. Yes. And anyway, you've paid absolutely no real life currency to unlock those. Maybe except for like the time that you spent. But with just that time alone, you've been given access to like an hour or even more worth of content that's been essentially like a visual novel. And I don't know, I feel like I don't hear a lot of people like appreciating that enough. But yeah, speaking of gacha games as an art form, have you ever stopped and appreciated the art, nay, the illustration of the cards that you're pulling? Maybe you have. I don't know, but maybe not enough, honestly. And I see this a lot in gacha games with a good focus on art, like Master, Shiny Colors, or even Link like Love Live, wherein the illustration of those gacha cards are at the forefront of the game itself. And yet they're never given the flowers that they deserve. It's more like, oh, that looks cute. Anyway. Like nobody moved, like they don't really give a fuck because they're not meta or whatever, sometimes. Okay, the existence of art is fundamental in the making of a gacha game, and yet it's also like one of the most underappreciated ones as well, like in my opinion, in the sense that these illustrations are seen only in this lens of being in a gacha game. And it just made me realize that it's kind of unfortunate that a lot of great pieces of art are stuck or even tied to a gacha game, because some of them are like a good demonstration of telling a story through a visual medium. Let me give an example.
Irashaimase!
Konbanwa. Kagishitsu wa doka desu.
Ma'am, hindi po talaga ako marunong mag-Japanese.
One of the more memorable illustrations that they did for a card in Shiny Colors, for me, is from an event they had in 2022 called You're My Love Letter. So like looking at the illustration itself, you can already tell that visually, boom, they're already trying to convey something different besides just showing the characters involved in that story. Like, okay, why is the focus unit, Alstromeria, on this small-ass phone? Or, whose apartment is this? And why is there a tissue box on the table? Girl, that is gross. But like, from an artistic standpoint, it fills you with an intrigue as to why they presented Alstromeria in that way. Even though this card is for them and they are the focal point of the illustration, why are they delegated into such a tiny space in this whole canvas and the whole like illustration itself? We'll talk about the card more when we get to the principle of composition. But with that said, this is what I like, or this is what I mostly like about Shiny Colors and basically their style of card storytelling. They aren't afraid to be unconventional as long as it feeds into the story that it wants to tell to its reader, compared to some other gachas that makes their illustrations kinda static and uninteresting. I mean, okay, no shade to them. If it's not broke, don't fix it, but...
Be nice.
Okay, you know what? Some gacha games have like the blandest story ever, or bland art, or even yet like bland characters, and that's okay, good for them. But like if you look at it at a critical lens, what else do you have to offer like besides the fact that you're a gacha game?
Oh, that's no.
Boom. Right. Oh my god. That was scary, guys. Who said that? Who said that? But you know. But like that's a topic for another day. Hey guys, Editor Bree here, and I just noticed from my analytics that okay, girl, what are you doing? Apparently 98.6 of you guys are not subscribed to this channel. And you know, if you want to see more contents like this discussing about art and gacha games specifically, you better subscribe. You better click that thing down there. You better click that, and you better ring that bell or whatever the fuck they I don't know. I don't know what they do, girl. Just subscribe, you guys. I don't even care anymore.
Clap if you care. All right, let's move on. Perfect.
One other example I can think of is from another Idol Master game, specifically Million Live Theater Days. They do this series of gacha cards called Song for You, and it delves into the past of the game's cast, mostly like their motivation and how they became like idols in the first place. This one card in particular represents the theme the most to me, which is Arisa Matsuda's SSR4 called Chou GenShow Idol Chang. In retrospect, this is a relatively simple illustration, but the devil is in the detail, as with the other illustrations from this game. Oh, wait, yeah, and I forgot to mention that this card has two illustrations, one unidolized and idolized. But like, it's whatever, it's just a game mechanic that most gacha games have. Maybe you're already familiar with it. But it is important to take note of since some gacha games with this mechanic use it as another layer of storytelling. The unidolized version of Arisa's card shows her younger self palm to palm with another person, presumably an idol as signified with the penlight that Arisa and the people behind her are holding. Her eyes are glistening with awe, reflecting a figure that seems very similar to her older self, and in conjunction to that, the second illustration of this card shows Arisa in her present self, mirroring the characteristics of the previous illustration. Palm to palm with another person, her eyes reflecting a younger figure, but the pen light everyone has is her image color. Yes! Like, it's a heartwarming tale that's easily understandable on a visual level, but you know, it's an appetizer. These two illustrations entices you to read the story that it accompanies, and you get to, you know, find out that the concert she performed at, as shown in the second illustration, was the second venue as the one she went to with her dad. The one that inspired her to love idols and become an idol in the first place. And I just noticed that I talked about that illustration for like a good chunk of time, but I think that's a testament to how great a piece of art is. Like, there's just a lot to chew on. I'm giving some of these gacha games a special shout out.
Wait a damn minute.
Well, who said that? A special shout out specifically for these cards. I'm not familiar with these. I mean, I haven't read much of their story together with the illustrations they do, but it's clear that they share the same level of love and effort with the other gacha games that I've discussed in details earlier. Some specific mentions are 1. This ID Fest illustration from Project Sekai, Mira Creation with Osawa Ririno in Link Like Love Live, Mamimi's card Sazanami Polyrhythm in Shiny Colors Song for Prism, and Saki Hirami's Forgotten Rose Rouge in Cinderella Girls Starlight Stage, which in my opinion is one of the Recita's like best cards. Fight me on that. If you have like a favorite, like, just comment them below because I will be looking at them, and maybe I probably am like familiar with them already, but you know, like, just comment because it's for engagement.
You're just a gay boy. I ain't trying to play, boy. I ain't thinking about you.
I mean, I've been talking my ass off about these cards, but I haven't even like delved into the technical aspect of it, as I always do with these gacha card like analysis videos. Here I am again with this crazy ass principles, but you know, this time it's like backed by books. I read a book for this one, you guys. I read a book. Who else you asked? Yup. Yup. But okay, now I'm not gonna talk about all of the principles of art applied in these illustrations because, well, okay, yeah, they'll take a lot of time. But I will bring up one principle that's frequently utilized in most of these games illustrations, and that is, drumroll, compositions. Who else asked? Who else asked? Me, I did. Which I feel is the most important since it is the culmination of the visual components that we, as an audience, see in an illustration. So Ian Roberts has this great book called Mastering Compositions that basically delves deeper into the subject, and one of the things that he said is that as a viewer, you're going to quote unquote respond to a few simple value masses arranged in a picture plane, that is, the big shapes and their contrasts. And once you're hooked by them, you can look closer to inspect more, which further engages you to said painting or said illustration. We can look back into the first example I showed earlier with You're My Love Letter from Idolmaster Shiny Colors, but with this piece alone, we can already apply 3 compositional points that Roberts has told in his book. So one of this is the use of value and contrast to create a focal point. In layman's term, value is the lightness or darkness of a color. Because of how our eyes work, you're more likely to look at the bright parts of a piece first, before the dark parts of it, which is used masterfully here since Alstroemeria is the focal point due to them being brighter as contrasted by its dark and unlit background. Another point to talk about is mass and how it shaped the illustration into their own main areas, basically to create depth and balance into the whole illustration itself. And you can basically divide this piece into 3 areas. So the foreground consisting of the focal point and the desk, which is bright, the midground, which has the cabinets and mirrors that's darker compared to the other areas, and the background, which has the bright cityscape's glow on the apartment's balcony. This illustration basically made a sandwich, in the sense that its midground is dark on purpose to contrast the other bright parts and create depth. Which leads us into the final point, framing and how a narrative is implied through the aforementioned visual cues. Now, this is where it gets subjective. Although framing is just the culmination of both points discussed earlier, implied narrative is how the piece is perceived by the audience. Let's look back at the piece. Why does it kinda exude solitudeness? Because in some part, that was the intent. Remember when I said that the visuals are a side dish to the story that it wants to tell? Because that's basically what's happening here. Okay, non-spoiler discussion here, but the story event for this card tells an anthology of mob characters who all have one thing in common, that they're all fans of Alstroemeria. Now that might sound uninteresting, but it's actually the best written story that Shiny Colors has, showing us that the idols have a far more effect on the people that support them. I highly recommend you watch it, even if you have no knowledge of the game itself. It's a very standalone piece, and that's what makes it a good read. Well, for me, anyway. I know I talk a lot of shit about gacha games and their predatory tactic. Wait, I'm slouching. But I can't deny the artistic impact that they have and offer in the whole card gacha game zeitgeist. I mean, I genuinely have high respect for these games that create illustrations, not just for the sake of making a pretty picture to look at, although, obviously I love that for them if they do. But it's to also enhance the experience that they want to give to the players. And I may or may not be the first to say this, but I think the art inside gacha games deserve to be praised on the same level as, I don't know, a framed piece of art, maybe. I mean, I feel like we as a society have been desensitized with the amount of art and content that we see on a daily basis anyway, that we fail to appreciate and give praise to the illustrations inside these games. Or even the games that you play, girl.
A profound silence has entered.
You're not a girl. Maybe. You know what? That's the thing with my demographic. I feel like I want to believe that I do this for the girls, but most of my audience is like dudes, I'm pretty sure. And like people above the age of 27. And if you're above the age of 27, hey girl, I mean, hey dude. Ew. Oh yeah, and like give praise to the illustrations inside these games. Like it's sad. I really do think that.
I think it's really sad, like so sad.
And well, as a takeaway from this like video itself, like hopefully this video gave you something to ruminate upon every time you open like whatever idol gacha game you have on your roster. Like right now, I see you, and I wish that you learned something about like the art of illustrating itself. Like I mean, that's literally like the point of the video. So you know, I do hope that I served that purpose. Anyway, thank you. Yeah, thank you everybody, and I'll see you on my next video, whenever that is.
Thank God.